All right, in this video we're going to cover how to create scramble pairings. And scramble pairings were created by us here at Track Wrestling as a solution to those situations where you're just looking to match wrestlers up. You're not necessarily running a tournament. You're bringing in a few teams for, say, a youth event or a middle school event, and you just want to create as many quality pairings as you can, get as many good matches as you can for your wrestlers. You're not concerned with giving out awards and having a champion, things like that. And we think that scramble pairings are an excellent solution for that. So this video, we're going to cover the basics. I'm going to run through pretty much all of the steps that you'll need to run your scramble event. I'm going to skim over some of the more basic and common steps in the process, and then drill down to the items that are new and unique to scramble pairing. So we'll get started right away. If you're using a pre-registration, you will have already activated that. You probably have wrestlers coming in. If you're not using a pre-reg, then obviously that's not something you would need to worry about. But we want to go into our setup and then settings. And there's a couple of settings we want to make sure that we have adjusted correctly. I want to make sure actual weight, grade, and separation are highlighted here. If not, I can use my control key and click on or off them. And then of course save those fields. So I could have other items here too, but those three we want to make sure are covered. And then there's a few items here in these settings I want to make sure. I want to make sure use mats is set to yes, and we'll get to the reasons why in just a little bit. I also want to make sure if I'm using team scoring, I have that set to yes. This one's critical, pretty important. Allow statisticians to pre-enter actual weights. We're going to do that. We're going to encourage our teams, and certainly for most of you, to have coaches enter their wrestlers, put their actual weights in, maybe even upload those from our dual meet system. And we'll get a little bit more in depth in that, but we do have a dual meet system where your teams could each be in our system, they could have their rosters, and then rather than entering all that data each time you have a meet or an event, they can just upload that information. It makes it really quick. So if you have more questions on that, please let us know and we can help you with that. Separation criteria we'll want to yes, and again most of these will be defaulted for you. And then I want to make sure that use scramble pairings is set to yes also, so I could change that if it's not. And that's those are basically the settings we need to make sure that are set for our scramble event. I would go to my deadlines and make sure that my deadlines are set correctly, and again that's no different than other types of events. I want to make sure that I have my teams in here. So I already have 6 teams. If I needed to add another one, I could just invoke this add team operation and add that. You'll notice that I have a no match here because I am on the testing site. If you're linked to our dual meet system, there's going to be the name of that team in our dual meet system there. Again, if you have questions on that, please let us know. But I would add my teams, make sure all my teams are correct. And then I want to make sure that my divisions are set up correctly. And this is going to be a little bit different. By the way, I went to setup or any of these menus actually, and then groups and divisions. In my event here, I have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders coming. And so I have a group for each of those grades. And that might be different than what you've done in the past for a tournament, but this is kind of a critical step. I'm going to want to keep my 6th and 8th graders apart. I don't want those guys to wrestle or those wrestlers to wrestle each other. You may or may not want to do that, but we do recommend that you have one group per grade. So you're going to add a division. If I needed to add another one, let's say that I had 9th graders coming, I could add the freshmen here and then go ahead and add it. But I just have those 3. One thing to point out, if you are using our dual meet system and you're uploading rosters, I'm just going to show you the FAQ for this. So it's in here. If you're using our dual meet system and you're uploading, you want to make sure that these are the exact names that you're using for your groups. And you'll notice that I have those correct. If not, you want to make adjustments to that. As they import, that'll be important. Not the end of the world, but definitely something you want to take a look at. If I'm doing team scoring, I could come into my setup menu and adjust my team scoring. You don't have to, but you can. And then I want to make sure that I have my mats. I'm actually going to run 4 mats. I have 3 here already in. I just click the add mat and I add mat 4 here. I always want to make sure that I also add the word mat in front of that too. It makes it easier for people to see, to identify what they're actually looking at. If they're just seeing a 2, they might not know it's mat 2. But I want to name my mats there and make sure that those are in. Also want to make sure that if I haven't done so already, that I go to users and I add my statisticians. These are people from each of these schools that are going to be entering rosters for those teams, and I can note here when the last time that they logged in. So setting up those, if you're using statisticians, which we would encourage you to do if you can, you'd want to go ahead and set those up then. And then what I want to do is I'm going to come into operating, go to number schemes. I'm going to add my number schemes, and number schemes are going to be important for a few reasons within Scramble Pairings. But because I already have 4 mats set up, I can quickly add schemes. I'm just going to come here and click this Add Mat Scheme, and I'm going to type Add, and it will automatically add a number scheme for each of my mats. And the only other thing we need to do on this page is to renumber what we're starting at. So you don't have to do this. We definitely think this is best practice and a great idea for you to do. So I'm just going to click on the Start At. I'm going to click on the 1, and I'm going to start numbering mat 101. I'm sorry, mat 1 with 101. Mat 2 is going to start with 201. Mat 3 with 301. And as you probably already guessed, mat 4 will start with 401. So, and we recommend not starting with 100. It would be kind of like having about number 0, which it throws some people off. So these are good, again, probably our recommendations as to how you want to start that. And the reason we do this is if, let's say that my wrestler that I'm looking for, maybe it's a wrestler on my team, or maybe it's one of my children, if they're about 223, I'm going to know that that bout is going to be coming up on mat 2. So it helps people identify where those are going to go. So I have my number scheme set up. I'm kind of basically set up. At this point, I would probably copy over to the testing site to practice. As I get closer to the event start or the date of the event, I would probably close my pre-registration, import from my pre-reg. There are other videos out there on that, but definitely something you would want to do if you have a pre-reg going. And then let's skip ahead to the day of the event, and I want to make sure that the wrestlers that I have in my wrestler list, which are right here, I want to make sure that these guys are all coming. You know, they weren't sick from school that day or something like that, or maybe there's some changes. And what I want to do is I want to have my coaches that are coming verify that information and make changes if necessary. So what I'm going to do is if I come into my registration and I go to printing, I can use the team roster, and I'll show you this. The team roster is a pretty nice document. It's going to give me each team and their wrestlers, but it's missing some information that we think is important in Scramble Pairings. So probably a better way to do this is if we go to printing and then we go to the weigh-in sheet. And the weigh-in sheet, even though we're not having weigh-ins, weigh-in sheets is it's a powerful document, and there's a lot of different adaptations for this particular document. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust these columns, and I just use the drop down to do so. I have this set up, but you're going to want to put team, first name, last name, the group, which in our case, as we talked about, is going to be their grade, separation criteria, which of course is their skill level, and then their actual weight. And again, these categories are going to be used to help create our pairings. And so I'm going to sort it by team, and then by wrestler name, and then I'm going to have a page break after each team. So I would save these settings, and then when I view this sheet, each team is going to have their own sheet, so it's going to page break. And so for DC Everest, I would hand them this sheet. They can look through, they can see the names of the wrestlers, all the information associated with them. And let's say that maybe Tanner wasn't here today, maybe he got sick and went home. They could let me know. Maybe they would make a note here, cross it off, or let me know. And then I could go back in to Tanner and delete him from the tournament so he doesn't get paired up with anybody. And each team, of course, would have their own sheet. So that would be a good thing to hand to coaches on the way in, verify that everybody is there. If I needed to add a wrestler, of course, I could go to the on-site registration and add a wrestler from this particular point. If I wanted to delete a wrestler, I could search him from here. And I'm not even sure, let's say Becker, I see him on here. I could search him. I could open him up and I could delete him from there. Or I could always, and there's lots of ways to do this, I could put check marks next to certain wrestlers and then I could delete selected participants. But in my case, everybody's here. I'm ready to go. Really important to make sure that the data is correct. Make sure that the wrestlers that are in your list that we're going to start pairing up are actually there. So take the time, make sure all of those are all that information is accurate. And now I'm ready to create my scramble pairings. So I'm going to go to bracketing, and then go to Scramble Pairings. And if you're not seeing this right here, that means that you need to go back to the settings page and flip that flag that we did before. So make sure Scramble Pairings is set to yes. But I did that, so Scramble Pairings is there, and now you'll see this page. And this is kind of this is the big chunk of this video. This is probably the new part for a lot of you. And this is a list of all of the wrestlers that are registered. So here's our list again, sorted by grade, or division, I guess, is what we call it, but in our case it's grade, 6th, 7th, and then our 8th graders down there. It's also showing the other information regarding them. So there's buttons across the top. There are these parameters here that are going to set up, tell our system how you want to pair these. And then there's a pair and a don't pair over here. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to start with the pair. Let's say, for instance, that I know that I want Alistair and Dane to wrestle each other. If I could click pair and pair, you'll notice that that pairing gets created. Actually, the match gets created, and you'll note that because it becomes bold. Okay, and maybe there are reasons you want to do that. Maybe there's a matchup that you want to see. You don't have to do that, but certainly that's something that you can use if you want to. The other thing is this don't pair. Let's say, for instance, that Max and Kale have wrestled a bunch of times and we don't want them to wrestle again. If I click don't pair and don't pair, I just read the sentence. It says that you're about to specify that they should not wrestle. And that's what I want in this case as an example, and I click OK. And now you'll notice that it says right there that they're not going to be paired up. Weight tolerance, that's the amount, the percentage of weight difference that you want your matchups to be created using. You can adjust that up for bigger kids, down for lower kids. 10% is kind of the default. That's usually a pretty good number. We'll note that in all of these items, you're probably going to want to specify across your group or your conference or whatever your group is, so you have some consistency from week to week or event to event. We think that's probably a pretty good idea. Division tolerance. The division, of course, is in our case the grade. Division tolerance of 1, I'm going to leave that at 1. And what that means is that my 6th graders can wrestle other 6th graders or 7th graders, but they won't wrestle 8th graders. If I set this to 2, they could go 2 divisions above or 2 divisions below. If you have a larger group, let's say you're running K through 6, there might be a reason to do that. Again, if you want everybody to wrestle everybody, in this case, I could set that to 2. In my case, I'm trying to keep my 6ths and 8ths apart, so I'm going to leave that at 1. Skill tolerance is a similar situation, but that's looking at our separation criteria. If I set this to 2, this is going to, if I look at my separation criteria, I have excellent, good, average, and beginner, and that's the default for track wrestling, so you're probably using the same thing. If I have a skill tolerance of 2, my excellence could also wrestle the goods or the averages, because it'll go 2 below or 2 above. Of course, there's not 2 above. If I set that to 1, the excellence would only be paired with the goods, unless I use the manual pairings. So again, good idea to probably have some guidelines for your group as to how each event coordinator is going to handle that. Desired match count, I'm shooting for 2 for each of my wrestlers. You could adjust that if you need to. And then my max allowed, I'm going to set to 3. And what that does, that's saying that some wrestlers might get 3 matches in an effort for our system to pair up and get everybody 2 matches. I'm going to set that to 3. Probably a good idea to bump that up a match, maybe even 2, depending on how your pairings work out there. And then down here, let's say, for instance, I just wanted to use the Stratford and Wisconsin Rapids wrestlers. I could set up a more dual meet type situation if I wanted to do that. Just pair those wrestlers from those 2 teams. I'm going to use them all. We're going to try and mix them up as best we can. So I have my parameters set. The view possible pairings, if I click this is going to show me any of the possible pairings that this wrestler could get. And so that's a way to kind of look at that. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I have my parameters set the way I want them. I'm going to click the auto pair button. And this is our system giving back the best possible pairings using the parameters that we've set. So a couple of items here. You'll note that the name is bold, and that'll always be the case once we get to this spot. But these matchups are not bold, and that means that these are suggested, right? We haven't created these actual matches yet. We'll do that in just a minute. This number behind the wrestler tells us how many matches that this particular wrestler has. So Max, for instance, has 2. Kale has 2, but if you look at Corbin here, Corbin has 3, If we go down to Corbin, you'll see that he got matched up 3 times. Okay. This number behind is it's kind of ranking the quality of that pairing. A 0 with an exclamation mark, let's use exclamation mark, means that that's a perfect matchup. So let's take a look at Dane and Alistair. Dane and Alistair are both 6th graders. They're both average, and they're also within the weight tolerance that we specified. So that's a perfect pairing. That's a great matchup. We expect that to be a really good match if the data that was entered by the coaches is accurate. If you look, a 0.5 is still really good, and we can find the reason for that. Kale and Corbin are both in the 6th grade division, but you'll see that Kale is marked as an excellent and Corbin is marked as a good. So that's why that, again, probably still going to be a good match. And then a 1, of course, is getting that apart. So that means that there's just, these guys are actually a good and an average. And there's just a bit more discrepancy there. So again, if you're seeing 2s and stuff in there, you probably shouldn't see them. But if you're seeing those get bumped up there, you're going to want to take a look at those. But for the most part, you should see good pairings there. So if I go, one other point to note here, if I go to the bottom, I'm guessing, yep, you'll see some wrestlers that didn't get matched up. The system could not find anybody within the parameters that you specified to create matches for. And typically it's going to be because of the weight. These 2 wrestlers are close in weight. Everything looks good here except that they're from the same team. So I might just pair those 2 wrestlers up from the same team. Or maybe I'll say, that's a big weight jump, but I really want to get this kid a match. Check with his coach, check with a parent, whatever it is you need to do, and you might want to create that pairing manually. So if those all look good, then I'm ready to go, and all I'm going to do is create the selected matches. Now, they're all check marked, but if I wanted to check mark just a few, I could do that. In most cases, you want to move quickly. The pairing should be good, so I'm just going to create selected matches, and now you'll notice that they all turn bold. And I have my matches created just like that. So the matches are created. Again, most of my wrestlers should have 2. Some of them will have 3. And that's as simple as it is to create these pairings. Again, you've got guys that are close in weight, close in ability, and using the tolerances that you've specified. So I got my matches created. Now what I want to do is go ahead and I'm going to assign these matches to the mats. So I'm going to go to operating and go to mats. Remember, we already had our 4 mats in here. I click assign mats. And what this is doing is it's actually it's taking all of our matches, it's spreading them out across those 4. It's taking our smallest guys first. It's going to work left to right across our mats. It's going to go all the way up through our biggest wrestler, which looks like this one right here. And then it's going to come back with our lightest wrestlers again. Okay, and through those matchups. If I want to move these, I can use those arrows, but in most cases I'm going to be okay. I'm going to click Save All, and these will become bolded. That means that they're assigned to the mats now. Next thing I want to do is go ahead and apply my number scheme. So I go to operating and then number schemes. I've got my number schemes created. I have my my starting bout numbers, and I just go ahead and apply. I can leave the frozen status as it is right now because I don't have any bout numbers on any of these matches, and I can type apply. And I have those all created, and I can see those if I go to my bout schedule. So you'll notice now that all my matches are in my bout schedule. What I want to do is I want to make sure that coaches and parents and wrestlers know where their matches are and who they're wrestling. So I'm going to come here to print schedule. And if I come to this print schedule part, there's a couple of items I just want to change. If I come here and in this area, I want to set this to detail only. I'm going to skip the buys and hide the colors. And if I click go, this brings me up a nice document by mat. So I have mat 1 right here. I have mat 2, and now it shows me about 101 is between Dane and Alistair. What some people will actually do is use this as kind of a bout sheet. They'll just circle the winner, maybe put a score next to it, but that's another thing. You can put this up, you can give it to coaches, put it at your score tables if you want, but that's a good document to use. And then one other document that we think is really handy and a kind of a really powerful document. If I go to operating and then printing, and I'm going to go to the team bout schedule. And then I just have a couple of adjustments to make on this one. I want to change this group by to wrestler. And then if I go ahead and click go on this one, this will open up this page. And now what this does is all of DC Ever's 6th graders are here, and it shows all of their matches and who they wrestle and what mat they're on and what bout number they are. And it'll go through, it'll show all the DC Ever 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, and then it'll go to the Horace Mann, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And what we found is if you put these up on a wall somewhere, with all the DC Everest ones here, all of the Horace Manns here, all of the Wisconsin Rapids over there, it's an easy way for parents and wrestlers to find out what they are. So if, let's say that I'm here and I'm Carson, I know that I am about 123, 213, and 302. So I know where my bouts are. And that's another good document for you to use. I can print bout sheets from here if I'm using bout sheets. So I can go ahead and select those all. I can print selected bouts, and I could go ahead and print all of these if I wanted to do that. And I could also then get started. All the wrestler matches are going, and then all I would need to do then is, as if I want to enter results, I go to my operating menu and I go to bout entry, and I could enter my bout. So let's say I had bout 101 that came back. That's probably not, maybe it's bout 102. I can click go, it's going to bring this up. If Travis was the winner, I pick the win type. Maybe he got a pin, and maybe the pin time was 45 seconds. And I click save, and that bout gets saved. And so that's basically it. So we think scramble pairings are a great way to handle those situations where you have teams together and you just want to create a lot of matches for your wrestlers. Feel free to ask us questions, call in. If you have questions about this, let us know. We're pretty excited about the possibilities of this scramble pairings feature in track wrestling, and hope you are too.